Hello, and welcome to Zap the Gender Pay Gap, the podcast series where we expose the elephant in the room. The elephant's name, the gender pay gap. I am coming to you from Memphis, Tennessee, located on the banks of the mighty Mississippi River. Nestled in the southwest corner of the state, Memphis is home to the blues, barbecue, and so much more. I am your host, Gwendolyn Tucker.
Thank you so very much for joining me for this episode of Zap the Gender Pay Gap. I am your host, Gwendolyn Tucker. Look for me on Apple, Spotify, Google, and for YouTube. And also, please subscribe to my podcast so you don't miss an episode. On the last episode, I took a deep dive into the origins of Women's Equality Day. I didn't want to get too deep in the weeds, but I felt compelled to lay out a timeline and brief history lesson about this very important event in time. If you didn't get a chance to listen, please do. Here's the short version. Since 1971, August 26th is the official day we celebrate women's suffrage because it falls on the anniversary of the certification of the 19th Amendment, which granted women the right to vote. Women, primarily white women, earned the right to vote in 1920, and it was the suffragettes who did the legwork to make it happen. The women's suffrage movement was about having the right to vote in political elections because having a voice, having a say in the political process resulted in enfranchisement, not disenfranchisement. For far too long, women and people of color were at a disadvantage because they didn't have a say. While doing some research on this topic, I found a really neat image and quote credited to the Library of Congress. It shows a woman talking to a man in overalls, and she's pointing her finger in his face. He's standing and looking quite amused with both hands in his pockets, and in some ways looks confused. But you want to know what the quote says? It says, "For the work of a day, for the taxes we pay, for the laws we obey, we want something to say." It took another 51 years from 1920 to 1971 for Women's Equality Day to become an event important enough to celebrate as a national day. Year after year, we celebrate Women's Equality Day. But the reality is that women and people of color consistently earn less than men. Now, some don't want to hear it, but time and time again, the data confirms that there is a gender pay gap. It really does exist. It's been more than 100 years since the 19th Amendment was ratified and 58 years since the Voting Rights Act of 1965 was passed into law that gave people of color the right to vote. Yet, here we sit in 2023, and this is our reality. Women and people of color are fighting for equality, especially when it comes to pay. Don't believe me? Check out a recent survey by Pew Research Center on the enduring grip of the gender pay gap. I am aware that for some, even current data won't convince you. For those who refuse to be convinced by data, this episode is not for you. No, this episode is for those who are willing to accept the facts and do some legwork to confirm the facts for themselves. If that describes you, I've included a link to the report in the description box to this episode. According to Pew Research Center, the gender pay gap, the difference between what men earn and what women earn, has barely closed in the United States in the past 2 decades. Let that sink in. In 2022, American women typically earned 82 cents for every dollar earned by men. That was about the same as in 2002, almost exactly 20 years ago, when they earned 80 cents for the dollar. The slow pace at which the gender pay gap has narrowed this century contrasts rather sharply with the progress in the preceding 2 decades. The report says that in 1982, women earned just 65 cents to each dollar earned by men. The report goes on to say that there is no single explanation for why progress toward narrowing the pay gap has all but stalled in the 21st century. Family needs can influence the types of jobs that women and men pursue. That also contributes, a contributing factor is gender segregation across occupations and different treatment of women, including gender stereotypes and discrimination, may also play a role. Pew Research noted that the gender wage gap varies widely by race and ethnicity. So why do I believe that women earn less than men? I'm glad you asked. I do believe that there is no one size fits all. That this is a simple question, yet it has a very complex answer. But if I boiled it down to three things, I'd say the top three reasons why women earn less than men are the following. Women are often underestimated, underrated, and undercompensated. Let me say that again. Women are often underestimated. We are regarded as less capable than we actually are. Number two, women are often underrated, not valued highly enough. And then women are often undercompensated, paid a lower rate, wage, or salary than is warranted. Now, whether underestimated, underrated, or undercompensated, the net result is women in the workplace are often underpaid. Now, women are strong. We're strong, often known for being high achievers. By a show of hands, how many of you are the designated SME? It's me, the subject matter expert. How many of you are the go-to for most questions? You mentor new team members. You fill in the blanks. Often taken for granted in the workplace, more and more responsibilities are placed on women, but sometimes the equivalent compensation doesn't come with it. Even with a great track record, being known as a go-to or subject matter expert, women face a number of challenges. The top three that I mentioned significantly affects a woman's personal financial bottom line, not only now, but well into her future. Again and again, surveys show women earn less than their male counterparts. I refer to it as the elephant in the room. You know its name, right? Yes, that's right, the gender pay gap. The most recent survey, as I mentioned before, revealed that on average, women earn 82% of what men earn. You'd think the pay gap for female managers would be better, and it is slightly better, somewhat better. Female managers on average earn 90% compared to their male counterparts. So you see, women are still in a fight for equality. Yes, we have come a long way, baby, but we still have a long way to go. Please join me next week as I continue this conversation on the fight for equality, especially when it comes to pay. Now, women, we work hard for our money. We might as well take home all of it. I'm all in for that, huh? By the way, please check out the recent survey released by Pew Research Center. Just click the link in the description box to this episode. I really thank you so very much for joining me today. I look forward to seeing you here next Wednesday at noon Central Time as we continue this conversation and as you join in for the next episode of ZAP, the Gender Pay Gap. Until then, please be well.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of ZAP, the Gender Pay Gap. Please rate, review, and subscribe to or follow me wherever you get your favorite podcast. I am your host, Gwendolyn Tucker. Thanks so much for listening. See you next time.